Good morning or afternoon. Today I want to talk about strategies for reading comprehension with students that have special needs, learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, and so forth. And I think it's really vital time for parents to know some of the accommodations and things that they can do to help their children at home, because this video is being made during the pandemic and COVID-19, and teachers really have, parents really have become teachers in a lot of different ways. So it's vital for students with disabilities to be actively engaged in the reading process, or they will struggle with reading comprehension. They must be taught explicit strategies. Kids that don't have problems with reading, they innately get these explicit strategies, or they are easily taught the explicit strategies that develop their use of what we call metacognition, or the ability to think about thinking. And they can be involved in techniques to help them interact with reading material. Whereas children with disabilities or children with learning problems, they don't a lot of times have these innate abilities. So to read for meaning and to gain comprehension, there are a number of strategies that are helpful and effective that can be used prior to reading or during the pre-reading segment of reading, during the reading process, or after completing reading or post-reading the reading assignment. That's going to help you with reading comprehension, because that's the ultimate goal, is to have reading comprehension. So let's talk about some of the pre-reading strategies first. So pre-reading strategies are important for activating the reader's prior knowledge about the topic, building connections and comprehension of the text, and generating interest and motivation to read the material. Now, I've always recommended to parents that if children are having problems with reading and wanting to read, give them a high interest book to read, something that they are really interested in. If they're interested in cars, give them a book about cars. If they're interested in Clifford, give them a book about Clifford. This will give them more motivation to even want to read. Prior to reading, like I said, good readers do these things anyway, but prior to reading, relate the story or the reading material to the student's experiences, their background knowledge about class discussion, brainstorming, and charting prior knowledge. So what is it that you already know about this story about Clifford? What is it that you already know? Look at the cover of the book. What is it that you think this book is about? Use those prior knowledge skills, or help your child with those using those prior knowledge skills. Set the stage and establish the purpose for what students are about to read. For example, as you read, think about what you would do if this would happen. And that will get you engaged in the book. Clifford may have done this, but I don't think I would have done that. Well, I would have done this instead. Lead your student or lead the class through making and listing predictions prior to reading. What do you think is going to happen in this book? If that didn't happen, predict how you would have changed it. What would you have done instead? Generate interest and increase the student's background knowledge and frame of reference before reading by using concrete objects, audio-visual techniques related to the topic of study, like maps, music, photos, video. Let them look at a Clifford video on YouTube or whatever, if the book is about that, or if the book is about mountains in Southeast Asia. Let them look at a video on mountains in Southeast Asia. That'll give them the ability to have visualization in their mind. Give the students time to preview the key information in the text, like the illustrations, the captions, the headings, the chapter questions before reading through the chapter or text. I used to do this all the time. I wanted to know what the author thought that I needed to know or what was important before I started reading. That was a modification or accommodation that I gave myself. Previewing can also involve students listening to passages read aloud before independent study and rereading. Now, to activate prior knowledge, ask students to write down everything they know about the topic in like a learning log, like just brainstorming. Write down what you know about mountains in Southeast Asia. Write down what you know about Clifford the Big Red Dog. You know that he's big, you know that he's red, you know that he has a friend. What's the friend's name? Write down as many things as you can think about Clifford. Show them the video first so they can get some ideas about brainstorming. Discuss selective vocabulary that may be challenging for students before they actually start reading the book. Now, this is very important because you're going to come across some vocabulary in the book that the child may not know. Even in a Clifford book, you may come across some vocabulary that the child may not know. So let's pick out that vocabulary prior to the student reading the book, and maybe put it on the word wall. Maybe put it on a whiteboard. Write down those words. See if the students can come up with definitions for them. And then when they're reading the book, have them try to use those context clues that we've talked about before in trying to gather the meaning of the word. Link prior knowledge to new concepts and information that will be studied. So whatever you learned before about mountains in Southeast Asia or Southeast Asia, link that information to what you're going to be reading now. So use advanced organizers, anticipation guides, and other strategies that's going to help, like semantic maps. So you're mapping out the words. How does this word relate to this word? How does this word relate to this word? And this word relate to this word? So use all those visuals, graphic organizers, all those things help children to gain knowledge in the pre-reading process. Now let's talk about during the reading, strategies that you use during reading. So these should be taught and modeled in order to encourage the student to think about and interact with the reading material. This is crucial for comprehension and maintaining focus on the text. So if you have a book that the kid likes and the student likes, you've won half the battle. But if it's something that the kid needs to know or the student needs to know, then you're going to have to use those strategies to increase their interest in the book or what they want to know. Good teachers are they have an innate ability to do this. Teach students how to paraphrase a paragraph, putting into their own words the main idea and significant details. Some students find that paraphrasing each paragraph and stating it on a tape recorder or today you can use your phone, always helps. I use this when students are in therapy with me. Students love to hear their own voice on tape. At least a lot of kids love to hear their own voice recorded back to them. And so I use that. I'll have a student is like, okay, let's read this paragraph. Now tell me I'm going to record you. And now I'm even using video during the pandemic. Video record the student telling the story back to me. So that helps, or telling a paragraph back to me. That helps me understand if they understand. Teach textbook structure, significance of bold print in a textbook, italic print in textbook, headings and subheadings. Those have meaning. It's like if this subheading says how to read or pre-reading strategies, what do you think that's going to be talking about beneath? Or if you're talking with a textbook that says how to take care of plants before you get them, what do you think that part of the textbook is going to talk about? What do you think they're going to talk about in that paragraph? Teach students how to find introductory paragraphs and summary paragraphs. And I love summary paragraphs because I used to go to the summary and that can basically tell me what that whole little chunk said in the summary. Not the details, but it summarized for me. Teach students how to rephrase main ideas and headings in their own words. So you're going to rephrase those headings in your own words, use your own words, and that kind of makes it stick in your mind because now you really understand what that means. Teach how to find the subject and main idea and sift out the key facts and important details because there's a lot of fluff and irrelevant stuff in there. So you want the child to sift out all that fluff and irrelevant things and get to the meat of what the paragraph is about. Provide students with a pad of self-sticky notes. I've always been a proponent of this. And as they are reading, they can jot down notes, vocabulary words that they don't understand, that they can go back and clarify later. Any questions that they have about items that they don't understand. And that self-stick paper can be placed directly next to the points and the main ideas in the book. And they don't have to write in the book and do that kind of thing. Now, I've always been a proponent of kids being able to write on things and jot down things as they're reading so they won't ruin the reading process, but they can also know what it is that they need to go back and do. Teach story mapping, identifying the setting, which means the time and the place the story took place, characters, conflicts, problems, actions, events. What's the climax of the story? And what's the resolution of the conflicts? So you want to teach the student how to do those things. Use of any instructional strategies involving students with collaborative reading and analysis of the materials such as reciprocal teaching and literary circles. You want to do that. Encourage students to activate their imaginations and visualize while reading. Activating imaginations has been, kids have been having problems with that because we got so much stuff to look at these days that, your visual imagination just, has gone amok. But encourage your kids to visualize and imagine what do they think is going to happen. Have students to illustrate the scenes that they visualize. That those pieces of paper that we used to write on, write a paragraph at the bottom, draw a picture at the top, use that. Encourage questioning and self-questioning in your mind while reading. If a child is not able to remember self-questions in their mind while they're reading, have them again use those sticky notes to jot down the information that they want to ask themselves. It is a critical step. The reader must ask questions as, where does the story take place? Where is this story taking place? What is the problem in the story? What's going to happen? Why am I reading it anyway? What will the character do next? Predict. Why did she or he, that character, say that? What's the main idea of this story? Does it make sense? What is the point the author is trying to make? And I wonder what I would do in that situation. I always like to ask kids when we're going through understanding the story, what do you think you would have done instead? And that brings on that thought process. It's like, take yourself and put yourself in the novel. What would you have done instead of this character? What would you have done instead of this character? What would you have done? And so, or what if this is the way the story ended? Can you think of another way that the story could have ended? Use teacher-directed guided reading, which involves setting a purpose, sharing prior knowledge, making predictions, having students read silently for a while to answer a question the teacher posed, and then having a discussion using the text to validate responses. Now, sometimes when you're in lower socioeconomic school districts, it is difficult for kids to come up with some prior knowledge because they haven't experienced a lot of the things that are in the books that you're reading, or they haven't experienced things that's in the chapter. I came across this not too long ago where I had a child that had never gone to a fast food restaurant before. I had a child that had never been to an amusement park before. I had a child that had never gone with their parents to a grocery store. So they lack some of those experiences. So we need to find a way to have the child gain those knowledge of those experiences in other ways, because the child then cannot relate to what's going on in the book. And that is something that is real in low socioeconomic, if you're working there in low socioeconomic schools. Allow students to sub-vocalize or read softly to themselves like this. This auditory feedback often helps them focus on the reading material because they can hear themselves under their breath, and they can also see what's written on the page. Schedule breaks to increase motivation and sustain attention during independent reading. For example, encourage the child to set like mini goals in pacing his or her reading. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, and have the child read to a certain point in the text or to read for a predetermined amount of time. After reading to that point, the child gets to reward him or herself by taking a brief break. And I mean, not a huge break, a brief break. It can be set right before lunchtime, and so that can be an automatic break. Or it can give the child a chance maybe 5 minutes before lunch to do something that she wants to do or that he wants to do. Let's talk about some other strategies that we can use far as post-reading. And these are things that you would do after you finished reading the book. So after reading, strategies should be utilized to involve the student into some deeper thinking and exploration of the reading material. So use information to complete filling out charts and graphic organizers. I'm a big proponent of graphic organizers. It just organizes your thoughts and your ideas. Have deep discussions about the concepts or events in the text or the character analysis. What's the traits of this character? What's the traits of this character? Do you think you would be friends with this particular character in the book? Make connections through related writing activities. So let's write something about something that pick your favorite thing that happened in the book, and let's write a paragraph about it. Let's write something that you would do instead. Or let's write why you wouldn't do this. Why would this character do this, and write why you wouldn't have done it. Do further extension activities related to the theme and content of the reading to apply to learning. So you can have a book about mountains in Southeast Asia, but let's talk about mountains in the US. Let's talk about mountains in China. Let's talk about mountains in other parts of the world. The differences, bring all that together. Many of the strategies used during reading are also continued or completed after the reading process. And that happens with most things that we read and most things that we absorb. We kind of absorb the information and think on it and marinate on it after we finish reading the entire book or the entire article about it. Bring in different types of reading material. Bring in current events that's going on now regarding that same material. It's like, okay, this happened to Clifford. Guess what happened, down the street the other day? There was a lost dog that was down the street. Bring in things that are current to what's going on in the book. The book may have been written years ago, but believe me, nothing on earth is new. So bring that information up to date for the child. Make it relevant to their world. And remember, If you are working in a district or an area in which children lack those experiences that you are teaching them within the classroom, you're going to have that little extra push to get them to understand. It may be a field trip. It may be a walk down the street. In here during the pandemic, we're not able to do that, but there are other ways you can do that via videos, via parenting, parents taking kids on outside assignments. It's like, okay, your task today is to walk your child down to the park. They may not have experienced a park with their parents before. So let them experience those things before or after you start reading it in the book. Again, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks and have a great day.